Another day, another night, another deaf person denied an American Sign Language interpreter at a hospital where they're probably about to die. Family not informed, deaf relative was stabbed, hospitalized due to no ASL interpreter. This could only go well. In Oklahoma City, a woman is upset no one informed her or any other relatives that her adult son, who is deaf, had been stabbed and hospitalized overnight because police never sent him an American Sign Language interpreter. For the record, that's against the law. In case you were unaware of the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's hard for Angela West to make sense of how her son, rapper Bobby Osborne, ended up in her living room Tuesday afternoon, lying barely responsive on her couch. And if I'm reading this right, because I did read it once, this is after the hospital, after they sent him back home. Lying on the couch, barely responsive after the hospital. When he is responsive, he is just barely in and out, and he's telling me he's having a real bad headache. 2 stab wounds to his back were still oozing blood onto West's couch when News 4 visited Tuesday afternoon. What the hell was the hospital doing? Forget the sign language interpreter, what the hell were they doing to his back? Or not doing, apparently. I don't know. I don't even know, West said while fighting tears. I'm just sitting here watching my son to make sure he won't die, and I just don't understand it. She wishes she'd known what happened sooner, so she could have been in the hospital with him. West said Bobby was born deaf and uses American Sign Language to communicate. She said she would have minimally liked to be in the hospital with her son to act as an ASL interpreter for his nurses. But she only learned what happened to Bobby after he'd already been released from the hospital and sent home. Okay, so firstly, this woman should not be acting as ASL interpreter for him or their nurses. One, too close. Legally, again, you're supposed to get an ASL interpreter who is certified and has studied this. At the end of the day, if it really comes down to it, sure, you can use your family. Some people do prefer having their family, but it's just the fact that it's too personal, and I'm guessing, maybe the mother wouldn't necessarily understand something all the way because, she's freaking out, she's stressed over about her son, so it's usually easier to have someone who's neutral to the situation. I mean, obviously, the interpreter probably wouldn't like to see this person stabbed, but there's no emotional connection. I'm pretty sure that's the whole thing about that. But also me just being like, get an interpreter, get an actual interpreter and train in medical language. But never mind that, I'm still also confused on how this man was sent home from the hospital, still the same as when he walked in, essentially. She got a call late Tuesday morning from a woman working at Bobby's apartment building. The woman said Bobby was wandering the hallways and did not seem coherent. She said, "Please come and check on him," West said. "He's got blood all over him." Shouldn't the hospital be making sure that you're not bleeding before sending you out? At least a good amount anyway. Around the same time, West saw a News 4 story about a stabbing victim reported at Bobby's apartment building. She put 2 and 2 together and raced over to Bobby's apartment. She found him in his apartment, barely coherent. "I thought he was gonna die. When I saw him in his apartment, I thought he was going to die." You let this poor woman find out that her son got stabbed and is essentially dying from a news article? This is just getting more ridiculous as we go down. He was able to tell her bits and pieces of what happened to him overnight through sign language. He said that he was walking home at midnight and he'd seen a fight outside of a store. She says Bobby told her, next thing he knew, one of the people involved in the fight was stabbing him in the back. And he said he just ran. He just took off running. And I guess he got help somehow because they took him to OU hospital. But he only spent a few hours there. The hospital gave him an Uber, and instead of calling his family, they brought him home by himself. West showed News 4 a blood-soaked hospital gown and blood-soaked hospital pants she says the hospital sent Bobby home wearing. And he was wearing these clothes walking down the hallway. The hospital barely patched him up and sent him home walking in a nightgown and a hospital gown. She never got a call, not from police, not from the hospital. And so he was stabbed multiple times and the family was never notified. Nobody in the family was notified. She later called Oklahoma City police. She says they told her responding officers weren't able to ask Bobby for a family contact to call because they didn't have a sign language interpreter on duty. 1, go find one. 2, if you can't find one, I don't know, there's this thing called paper and pen. And all you have to do is I don't know if you can see it, but it says family. And then he could, granted he might have been too much in pain to write, but there's phones, there's laptops, there's iPads, there's so many different ways to communicate. Even just like pointing to stuff, like get a freaking printout or pull up a photo of the keyboard of the alphabet and let the man point to something. You don't just let the man sit there or lay there for hours not having anybody in his corner that knows him and sending him again to walk home. We'll get into an Uber. You let him get into an Uber bleeding with a bloody nightgown, hospital gown? I would also be so pissed as the driver of the Uber. I'm sorry, what? She also called the hospital to tell them Bobby was still bleeding hours after being released. Again, maybe they're gonna cover this. But what did you do to help this man? And the hospital said, you can call 911 if you want to, but we wouldn't have turned him loose if it was life-threatening. That they wouldn't have let him go. The man's bleeding, like a significant amount. He's been stabbed. It's not like a little cut, like if I accidentally took my X-Acto knife and cut myself. I mean, I don't know how bad that would be actually, and I'm not gonna go test it to find out, but this man has been stabbed in the back with knives. What do you mean? What the hell do you mean, hospital? Please sue them. Being left in the dark is not a new experience for West. She told News 4 her son has been previously attacked while living homeless in Shawnee. She never got any calls that time either. And I think people need to know what's going on out here with these handicapped. I've done nothing but fight since I've been here because he's handicapped. I screamed at the top of my lungs so many times that I'm tired. Tired of being left to make sense of her son's trauma after the fact. I ended up in a car accident around 2013, 2014. I can't remember exactly the year right now. Ended up being hauled off in an ambulance, and I wasn't learning any ASL at the time. So if I needed accommodation, it was literally through captions, through written text, visual text. And I told these people that the paramedics were actually pretty nice about it and pretty accommodating. So if I needed to know something, especially because towels, like rolled up towels, were at my ears and taped over to, keep me straight on the gurney. So if they had a question, they'd literally take their little clipboard and point, and I would respond verbally to them, alright? They knew what they were doing. But then once I got into the hospital, people would not do that. They would just keep talking to me, and I'd tell them, hey, point, get your clipboard, please point. You want to know my name? You want to know if I'm allergic to anything? Especially that. Oh my god, they did a switch that birth thing with that. I couldn't, well, granted I wasn't that bad, but my point is, like, if I was allergic to anything, like they did with that scene at Switched at Birth, if I was allergic to anything and I wasn't going to be able to officially get that communicated with them, there could have been a potential me dying, just like Daphne. Was it Daphne? No, it was the other girl, her friend, that was in the hospital, and she was allergic to something, and there was no real communication because there was no interpreter, and the nurse or whoever didn't care to figure out communication. So yeah, that ended up with me doing a lot of screaming in the hospital at people. They treat disabled people like they're garbage, but they're not. They have rights too. They have rights. We just can't find out how to use them. National Association of the Deaf for the Deaf has advocacy letters. Get those printed out. Get those printed out and laminated. Put them into a folder so you have them on hand when things happen. I'm not telling you it's going to be a perfect fix because people will still be people, but you have legal stuff in your hands. Also, sue them. Please try to sue them if you can. They need to be sued. And this isn't the first time that hospitals have been sued by deaf people, deaf families, because people have died because of lack of proper communication. Pregnancies have gone awry. I think there's miscarriages and stuff involved because hospitals, again, no ASL interpreter. News 4 reached out to the Oklahoma City Police Department to ask why they did not send an interpreter to the scene when they found out Bobby was deaf. We will always do our best to communicate with anyone who is a victim or otherwise, a department spokesperson said. That doesn't answer the question. I am so tired of people generally, not even just about this, of being asked a question and they don't answer the question. In fact, actually, I had this happen about trying to get ASL interpreters for the Women's March, and the person did not answer my question. They just did a lot of mumbo jumbo. This is such an easy question. How can you not answer it? As always, Simon has a screamy opinion. I love you so much. There was no doing our best to communicate. You flat out said, well, we're not going to try to contact family because we don't have an ASL interpreter. We're not going to try to figure out any other way of communication. We're not going to get out one of these to write down our question and see if he has the energy at all to write back. We're not going to use one of these to type out to him or use speech to text with him and allow him to type back. We're not going to get a piece of paper with the alphabet so that he can point and touch letters or numbers for phone numbers. And then when you add in the fact that the hospital didn't seem to actually patch him up in any way and sent him with a dirty, bloody hospital gown to go into a stranger's car. I mean, yes, it's an Uber, but it's still a stranger's car. And to have the driver possibly have to go clean that out, by the way, which, is that not, what's the word I'm looking for? A biohazard? There's so much wrong with this. That's shameful. Isn't that shameful, Simon? It's so bad. I can't. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. You're welcome to leave your own down below in the comments, and for more commentary about deaf awareness, disability awareness stuff, I have a Patreon page, so if you would like to support the work that I do, I will leave that link down below, and you can do that for as low as $1 a month, or consider being a channel member here. And for those with commitment issues, I don't blame you, there's a super thanks down here, so you can leave a tip if you would like. Subscribe. I would love to have you, as with Simon, because he's got a lot of vet bills, and that always helps. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. I very much appreciate it. Hope you all learned something today, and I'll see you later. Bye. Say bye.